The easiest and fastest way to write a 1,000-word essay is to follow these 5 simple steps. I'll also be sharing with you my 2 secrets to writing anything faster, not just essays. Step 1 is to determine how many words we need in each section of our essay. The body section is the largest and should have between 60 and 80% of our total word count. So for a 1,000-word essay, we need between 600 and 800 words. I like to stick to the lower end of that range, so between 600 and 700 words. And that's because it leaves us with 200 words for our introduction and 100 words for our conclusion, which is perfect. For that many words, it means we'll have 1 paragraph for our introduction, 3 paragraphs for our body section, and then a short paragraph at the end for our conclusion. Second, whatever you do, don't start writing your introduction first. All that does is slow you down and waste time. We haven't actually written our essay yet, so it's really hard to introduce something that you don't know what it's going to say. The only thing we want to be writing at this point is our thesis statement, and that's because it tells us what the rest of the essay is going to be about, so we know what to write about. A thesis statement is the topic of your essay and your position or perspective attached to it in a single sentence. If you're not sure how to write a thesis statement, don't worry, I've made a separate video on how to do that step by step in less than a minute. Once you have your thesis statement ready, we can start planning the paragraphs of our body section. This is the step that will speed up the research and writing process the most. We want to think about what 3 points we want to get across in our essay. Now, the reason it's only 3 points is because we're writing a 1,000-word essay. And remember, for that 1,000-word essay, we only want between sort of 600 and 700 words for our body section, and that equals around 3 paragraphs. So 3 paragraphs means we need 3 points, 1 point per paragraph. The points you choose for your essay will differ a lot depending on the type of essay you have to write. For example, an argumentative one versus one where you're talking about your life story. So think about what makes the most sense for your essay, your type of essay. If you're not sure what type of points you should include, jump over to this video where I detail the structure of the body paragraphs for each of the main essay types. Now that we have our 3 main ideas down in bullet point form, we can rearrange them to introduce logical flow to our essay. You can order your points in any way that you like so that it matches the topic of your essay and the type of essay that you're writing. For example, you might like to order them chronologically. This is especially useful if you're writing about your own life story. You want to start well in the past and move forward through time. But perhaps in a compare and contrast essay, you might like to order your points from most important to least important. Once you've rearranged your points so that they make sense, we can move on to the research side of things. Research is one of the slowest things that we have to do, so I want to share my first secret with you here, and that is to do focused research, or what I also call biased research. Now, it's biased because we're not trying to understand everything about something. We do that by taking our first main point that we've written down in bullet point form, and all we're going to do is take that and copy and paste it into our favorite search engine. I like using Google Scholar because it has a great algorithm and has quick access to PDFs that makes research much faster. Because you will have phrased your key point in a particular way, those keywords will target down your research. For example, if you're trying to talk about something in a positive light, it will automatically knock out any contradictory information that might be negative. Once you've found at least 2 journal articles that back up or provide more information to your main point that you've searched for, you can move on to the next main bullet point that you've written down, which represents your next paragraph. I've always found it really useful when doing research to write down the citation under the main point, so that when it comes time to writing and doing our citations and references later, we know which PDF matches which paragraph. We can finally move on to writing, step 5. Before we start writing as fast as we can, I want to share with you my second secret here. The fastest way to write is to never edit. It's an easy trap that we can fall into where we write a sentence and then we stop and we reread it and we change it a little bit. We try and fix it or make it sound better. All that does is slow us down. We need to finish writing our entire draft before we start editing. We're going to start by writing our body paragraphs because we've done all the work there already. We're going to take our first main point for our first paragraph, and all we're going to do is turn that into sentence form. We want to make it a strong statement sentence. You've probably heard the first sentence of a paragraph being called a topic sentence before. A good topic sentence is a statement. So that means we don't introduce a lot of detail or explanations or examples in it. It's normally quite short, strong, and simple. Once you've written down that sentence, we then want to write down 2 points. Now, each of these points will be between 1 and 2 sentences each, and both of them should expand on that first sentence, on our main point. The first point is a great place to add detail, examples, or description that explains the main point, that explains the topic of the paragraph. And for the second point, it's a perfect place to go deeper into your topic. You can do that by providing analysis or comparison. Depending on the type of essay you have here, it's a great place to compare information from two different journal articles, two different studies. These 2 points are where you'll include your citations to those journal articles. You'll now have a complete paragraph. You'll have your first main point that we turn from a bullet point into a sentence. You'll then have your first point, which expands on that, provides detail or description or an explanation, and has citations, and is 1 to 2 sentences. You'll then have your second point, which goes into the topic deeper by providing analysis or comparison, and will also have citations. Now, a great way to double check that you've actually stayed on topic is to just read that last sentence of your paragraph and see if it makes sense with your first. Are they talking about the same thing, or have we drifted off on topic and are talking about something completely different now? Now all we need to do is copy that same process for our second body section paragraph and then our third, and our body section is written. Once we've done that, we can move on to writing our conclusion. Now, the conclusion is a really short paragraph that's usually only around 100, maybe 150 words. The conclusion of an essay really only has 2 things in it. The first is that we want to synthesize all of our key points together. So everything that you've just written in your body section, you just want to shrink that down into 1 or 2 sentences. And then you want to reword your thesis statement as a strong final sentence to your conclusion. I always find it best to make that rewording of the thesis statement sound really positive, because it's a great strong way to finish an essay. Then we can finally write the introduction. The first sentence of our introduction is just the topic of our essay. So it's very close to our thesis statement, but it doesn't include our position or perspective in it at all. So it's very neutral, but it should also be that strong statement sentence. So don't provide a lot of information or detail in it. Once you've written that down, you then just want to provide a little bit more background information to it before popping in your thesis statement. I've actually made a separate video that steps you through how to write the best possible essay introduction. So if you have a little bit more time to write your essay, then jump over and watch that to really nail your introduction. But before you do, let's add the final touches to that 1,000-word essay. First, you want to read it out loud, sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph. The reason we do this is because it's much easier to notice if a sentence doesn't make sense or something's grammatically wrong when we read it out loud. So it's an easier way to fix it. Avoid using things like Grammarly to fix your work, because they're starting to get flagged by AI detectors. Then you just want to check all of your citations and references, make sure that they're correct and that they match. And then format everything. And don't forget to justify your text. Then submit it and don't look back. You've just turned a panic day into a productive one.